Hi, I'm Pete Andration of Andration & Associates. We are fee-only investment advisors in Salinas, California, and as always, it's been an interesting time. Remember, 2022 started with the worst open for a year in decades. And of course, right now we're dealing with a lot of uncertainty. Courage is completely a virtue, but this week, I just want to talk briefly about the word decadence that I used in a video last week. And I want to discuss it because it really does relate to how things go. This is from a novel, Those Who Remain, by G. Michael Hopf, H-O-P-F. I'll put the Amazon contact in the comments below. And he writes, "Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times." He claims it's taken from a meme that he discovered somewhere and he can't find it anymore. But anyway, it's in this novel. And it seems to be relatively true, setting aside the word men, substituting that for humanity. Let's say that humanity goes through these cycles. So I use the word decadence because we do go through investment cycles, political cycles, personal cycles, family cycles of what I refer to as decadence and let's call it virtue. Decadence is when people think short term. Decadence is when you think in terms of your own benefit rather than for the good of the many. Decadence is when you give way to a desire to do something that you know is going to hurt you. For example, smoking is decadent. We know that tobacco is not good for you. So it's a decadent act. It's extremely pleasurable in the short run. So is drinking a bottle. Well, it's probably not pleasure. I haven't done it, but I imagine that drinking too much alcohol is decadent because it's bad for you, but it feels good in the moment. I have been decadent with chocolate before. You eat too much chocolate, or decadent with taking off your shirt on a sunny day, things like that. You kind of know already that you're going to end up wishing you didn't. And we all know that decadence tends to happen when we're feeling good. Decadence tends to happen when we're feeling rich. That's when we overspend. With corporations, we see it when they build the brand new office building. I always, when I'm looking at stock, I look at the stock market and I see that they just invested in 6 new corporate jets and a brand new office building. I get concerned because routinely that's an issue. My late father used to say that it was, he used to call it the new awning syndrome for restaurants. When they fancied themselves up big, then he knew the food was going to get lower in quality. So decadence is a cycle, and virtue is also a cycle, and it tends to happen after you overeat. You tend to diet. After you overspend, you tend to pay off the debt. And that's what's happened in the financial markets. And it happens again and again and again. For example, we had a very decadence happens at the end of affluence. So we had a boom in the 1920s, followed by excess and self-dealing on the part of many CEOs and captains of industry. So they did basically corrupt behaviors. And then you had the 1930s depression as a result. The decadence extends to governments as well, as does the virtue. Then we had a virtuous cycle that happened from the 1940s through into the 1960s, when the World War II generation had been so battered by the hardships of the Depression and the war that they basically stayed on the straight and narrow until it all blew up in the 60s because of that rising decadence. And then we had the recovery in the 60s and the decadence of this and the governmental decadence of the 70s, followed by the virtuous 80s and 90s, followed by the bust of the first century of the 21st century. So what I'm trying to get across here is that this really does extend to investing. And it is true that when valuations get high and stay high, decadence emerges. That means people start investing in crypto. People start investing in the latest hot stock because there's that time, that moment in time when it seems like nothing will ever go down. Everything will always go up. And what do we do with that? Well, we hang back, and it takes a while to sort it out. The virtue here is the courage to get through it. The virtue here is to be in 1939, and you've got the Nazis, and you've got the Imperial Japanese, and the rising tide of Stalinism and Mussolini. And the virtue is the courage to see it through. And that leads to the good times of the 1950s on into the 60s. It is inevitable that people take things too far in both directions. They will wail too much and not be courageous when hard times are upon us, and they will overdo it, overspend, and overinvest in overvalued properties and stocks when we're on the top, and that's a mark of people who don't stay wealthy. It's just the way it is. So our job is to plot that conservative course and to be a bit conservative when things are really doing well, and to be a bit aggressive and courageous when things are going badly. Right now, I have no idea what's going to happen next, but I do know that the correct course of action is to be conservative going in, look for opportunities, and be courageous when that virtuous cycle reemerges. So, yep, we're here. And yeah, I sure did use the word decadent, and I'm okay with that. Thank you very much for watching. Please let me know if you have any questions or comments. And blessings. Stay cool.